Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Overseas Leafs Report. First off, I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. Thanks to those who keep watching. And if it's your first time watching one of these episodes, I hope you'll be hooked and keep watching as the Maple Leafs season progresses. So you may have noticed that I'm back in a familiar environment, which means a couple of things. First of all, that my holiday is over, which is always sad. But on the other side, I'll be able to watch the Leafs more closely. And while the first part of the season may have been quite difficult to watch, certainly a lot more fun recently since Sheldon Keefe has taken over and while the Leafs keep picking up wins. So there's lots to talk about. I'll start with a game that the Leafs played in New Jersey versus the Devils. Back-to-back situation once again, where Hutchison got the front end of it. Here he gives up the first goal 5 minutes in. Teams traded goals, especially on the man advantage, and at the end of regulation, it was 4-4, so this game was heading to overtime. Worth noting, however, that this is the game where Leafs rookie Ilya Mikheyev severely injured his wrist when a skate blade inadvertently came up and severely cut him. He underwent surgery, and it turns out that he'll miss several months. It's a big loss for the Leafs, so I wish him a speedy and full recovery. It's nice to hear reports after the injury that the Leafs went above and beyond to ensure that he received good care, attention, and a nice human touch. I think this is a theme that is coming out more recently, where management and the coaching staff seem to be paying a little bit more human attention to the Leafs players this season. Ultimately, it was the Leafs picking up the win in overtime 5-4 on an own goal. So the following night, the Leafs were back at home for a game versus the New York Rangers. You'll remember these two teams had played in the previous week at Madison Square Garden. Leafs gave up the first goal again, even earlier this time, but William Nylander managed to equalize it. He now finds himself in a good goal-scoring streak. Leafs found themselves down 3-1 midway through the second, then 4-2. They battled back to force overtime, despite Georgiev's best efforts. It was Matthews who equalized in the last minute with Freddie Anderson on the bench, but there was no overtime miracle on this occasion, as the Leafs lost for the first time in 7 games, but they still picked up 1 point in the overtime loss. For their last game of 2019, the Maple Leafs found themselves on the road in Minnesota. At that time, it was also announced that Leafs defenseman Justin Holl signed a 3-year, $2 million per year contract extension. I think it's an excellent deal. He showed great perseverance last season. He's been a solid contributor on the ice this season. And then it's also a nice move to announce this in his home state of Minnesota. Alexander Kerfoot opened the scoring in this game with his 100th NHL point. Goals also for Austin Matthews on the power play, William Nylander, and John Tavares with the empty net. They gave one up in the second on the penalty kill. But all in all, it was a solid road win for the Maple Leafs to close out the year. Which has me wondering where the Maple Leafs spent New Year's Eve. Having wrapped up the win against the Wild and benefiting from days off before their next matchup versus the Jets, neither of those cities is especially renowned for their nightlife. Nevertheless, I'm sure the team had a great time as they prepared for 2020. So as I just alluded to, the Leafs opened the new year with a matchup versus the Winnipeg Jets. This game had Marlies graduates Mason Marchment and Adam Brooks making their NHL debuts. Throughout the game, the Leafs took advantage of some sketchy goaltending by Connor Hellebuyck, putting 5 goals on 12 shots through 2 periods behind the Vezina candidate. The Jets' top guys were great in the second period. Leafs had no answer for them as they scored 3 in the second and had it tied 2-2 at one point. Freddie Anderson was particularly great in facing a total of 48 shots. The Leafs added 1 goal in the third towards wrapping up a 6-3 win and setting the tone for the second half of the season. The team has made a great recovery in the standings. They find themselves second in the Atlantic, and they're currently 8-1-1 in their last 10 games. With about 2 weeks to go before the All-Star break, the Leafs benefit from a nice homestand, starting off against the New York Islanders, followed by visits by the Edmonton Oilers and Winnipeg Jets. They've got 1 road trip facing the Florida Panthers before returning for 3 games versus the Devils, Calgary Flames, and Chicago Blackhawks. With all these home games and no back-to-back situations, I'm confident again that the Maple Leafs can take advantage and record a good bunch of points before the All-Star break. I look forward to talking to you again at that point. In the meantime, go Leafs go! Also check out @OverseasLeafs on Twitter for the latest news and updates.